What's going on, guys? Dakota here. Welcome back to my channel and welcome back to the next episode of my Marathon Training 2 series. I hope you all had a great week and a great weekend, and I hope you're all ready to smash this week coming forward. This past week we had a great week of running. I got a very interesting workouts and a lot of very interesting results. Also a lot of interesting retrospection time on mentality and how your mental game plays into your results out on the pavement. So I think we are going to be able to dive into that a little bit. But I don't want to go into that too much now. We'll go into it when we get there. But for now, I hope you're ready for this next episode of my Marathon Training 2 series. Let's go ahead. Let's jump on into it. Before we dive over to the calendar and start digging into some details, I just want to go ahead and ask you guys, if you enjoy these videos, consider giving this video a thumbs up. I know it really helps me out. And I know there's about a few of you every video who come in and, watch my stuff, but they aren't subscribed. So if you do like watching these videos, please also consider subscribing and sticking around and, coming and supporting me and, this journey that I'm on, both in YouTube and in running. So please consider subscribing. I would really appreciate it, and I won't bore you too much with this, but I'm really trying to build a community here, and seeing that over 50% of the people who come and watch these videos, albeit there's only a few of you right now, not being subscribed, please consider subscribing and coming back more and more and interacting on the videos as much as possible. So I would really appreciate it. But for now, let's go ahead. Let's jump over to the calendar and we'll get into the details of this week's runs. We have arrived at the calendar and we have arrived at some very important things happening and some very important results from this past week. First and foremost, we had a great week of some very interesting runs, a lot of intervals and a lot of changing of speeds things that really kind of made it tough this week, and also dealt with some weather for the first time in a long time here in South Central Texas. So we'll cross that when we get there, but you'll see my note there in the Monday slot that pertains to the Wednesday run, not necessarily the Tuesday run, but we'll get there right after this. But for Tuesday, we got a 5-mile run, which is an interval run with a 1-mile warm-up jog, and then 4 sections of half a mile fast, a quarter-mile recovery, and then a 1-mile cool down. Total stats on that ended up being 5 miles with a 9-minute and 42 second per mile pace and 48 minutes and 34 seconds total. This was a very good interval run. These shorter intervals, I feel like the 1-mile mark is a great distance for intervals. It feels clean. It's enough to settle into a fast pace, but not so long that you burn yourself out. But man, these shorter intervals, it's hard also just because I have to manually keep track of the distances. And so I think that kind of really makes it hard to just settle in and focus, because I'm always checking my watch or whatever, trying to, make sure I'm not overrunning or not running enough. So it kind of makes it a little extra challenging, and it always makes it a little more fun. But for this one, it was pretty straightforward. Half a mile, I tried to run it pretty fast, and then a quarter mile, I tried to really focus on recovering, and it ended up going pretty well. 5 miles went by like that, and we knocked it out pretty easily. So that brings us to our next day, where there actually was a flash flood warning on Wednesday morning and actually rained, I think, the majority of Wednesday. And so I actually had to push my everything one day out. So we were able, thankfully, with all these rest days that are built in, we were able to just push it back one day, and everything ended up being okay. So Thursday morning, thankfully, the rain cleared up, and we were able to do our 6 miles in a minimum 66 minutes. So running 6 miles at the minimum pace of 11 minutes a mile. I'm hoping I'll never have to be that methodical in my pace again. So we knocked out 6 miles in 57 minutes and 20 seconds for an average pace of 9 minutes and 32 seconds per mile. This was a great 6 miles, actually. It was probably the best 6 miles I've felt in a little while. I'm able to knocking out that 9.5 minute per mile pace. I think is right around where I wanted it. I didn't want to run it super fast, but I also didn't want to run it, too leisurely. I'm trying to make that 9.5 minute, like the mid nines, kind of my new standard pace. And so that's kind of the goal I had, and I was able to do it. So it was very good, very okay with that. Moving on to what would have been our Thursday run, but is now a Friday run. We have 4 miles with a 1 mile jogging warm up and cool down, and then 2 miles in the middle, tempo or around 9 minutes per mile. This one ended up going very well. My jogs were very nicely needed. I don't know why, but I think I woke up on this morning a little more sore than I was expecting. So the 1 mile warm up jog definitely was a needed, nice and slow get up and going. But the 2 miles tempo, I think I ran those, if memory serves me correctly, I ran the first one in 8 minutes and 30 seconds and the second one at about 8:40. So I took that 9 minutes and turned it into a minimum, and really tried to pick up the pace on this one. So final stats: 4 miles, 9 minutes and 17 seconds per mile, 37 minutes and 13 seconds at the end of the day. And yeah, very well. It went very well. Very straightforward. Not going to go into too many gory details on this one, because the one I want to talk about the most is this Sunday run, where I actually split it up into 2 separate boxes because I recorded them separately for the first time because I was curious and wanted to see what the results would be on its own. So we had a 1 mile jogging warm up, and then a goal of running a 10K or 6.2 miles in under 55 minutes. And the math that I came out with meant I had to run the 6 miles with an 8:51 per mile average or faster, and then a 1 mile, cool down. So it was a very interesting mindset going in, where I, just a few days before that, I ran 6 miles in 57 minutes. So the idea of just tacking on another quarter mile and taking off, I don't know, like 5 minutes, it seemed very doable, but at the same time, it felt a little daunting because I'm not sure I had ever run that far with that quick of a pace. I don't know if I've ever hit 6 miles or more and at an under 9 minute per mile pace. And I was a little nervous. These are the moments where you really start to see how small, pace differences can affect your total time, because, 6 miles in 57 minutes from Thursday felt a lot more doable than 6.2 miles in 55 for whatever reason. And I remember there were multiple times during this run where I wasn't sure I was going to be able to make it. I was trying to decide if I was okay not making it, or what my mindset would be if I didn't complete this goal of finishing under this 55-minute mark. And it was very interesting to be in a mental space where your goal and what your perceived reality is are kind of diverging a bit. And I remember it was pretty early on, so my warm-up, which I recorded separately, which is going to play into a part in this. So I ran a mile and then stopped to reset both my watch and my phone, because I wanted to record the 10K separately, because I didn't want it to get too intertwined with the warm-up and the cool-down. And so I actually stopped, and as I was changing it, I remember I felt pretty good. I felt really loose. The warm-up, I thought, went super well, and I was really confident that I was going to be able to do it. And then as soon as I started, I was like, all right, I think I ran the first mile in an 8.5 minute pace. And I remember finishing and going, okay, this feeling pretty good. I think it might be a little tough towards the end to keep this up, but I still had all the confidence in the world, until I think I hit about a mile and a half, a mile and 3/4, where it was the first moment where I was doubting that I was going to be able to keep up a pace like this, because I had run mileage this fast, but never quite this far. And as I got more and more tired, I think by 2 miles in, I realized that I had 4 more miles to go, and I was only a third of the way done. That it really kind of dragged me down mentally, and that only dragged me down more physically. And so those were those moments, I think, between miles 2 and 4, were where I argued with myself the most on whether or not I would be able to do it and what it would be like if I didn't do it. And that was a very interesting headspace to be in. And I think what actually snapped me out of it was the finishing up the 4th mile, where I think between the 3rd mile and the 4th mile, I stopped to walk some. And so my pace for the 3rd mile was above 9 minutes. I think it was about 9 minutes and 20 seconds. But then I made the connection finally that, I didn't necessarily need to run all 6 miles at an under 9-minute pace, as long as I averaged under a 9-minute pace or under an 8-minute and 51-second pace, that it was okay. And so my mile 2 to 3 was probably the worst mentally and physically I felt. But my miles 3 to 4 was where I picked it back up and was able to convince myself that it was possible and kept going. And then for whatever reason, whenever I'm on my wind down of the actual workout section, so in this instance, the 4 to 6 miles, like those last couple of miles are always when I'm heading back towards home. And so for whatever reason, I always get this second wind where it proves to both myself in the moment and later that, I'm more capable than I think I am in the moment, and I'm able to run a lot faster, more consistently than when I actually focus on it rather than focusing on what could go wrong. So those last 2 miles, I think I knocked out both of them in under about 8.5-minute pace, and it was getting kind of dicey there towards the end, because as you can see, I finished with 59 seconds to spare, and I was tracking it on my watch, which is separate than my phone because they're not directly connected. And so keeping a track on my watch, when I was getting down to, I think I had a minute left on my watch, and I still had not a quarter of a mile, but, like a 1/10 of a mile. I was getting really worried that I was going to come in at, just above 55 minutes, and that was going to feel, I think, worse than if it was, severely over 55 minutes. So I was almost sprinting, it felt like, towards the end. And once I finally saw it cross over on my phone and I stopped, I saw that I had completed it. And it was a very overwhelming sense of relief, an overwhelming sense of happiness and pride that I had managed to accomplish this goal. No matter how much my brain and body tried to stop me, I was able to do it. So that's kind of the things I wanted to touch on. I think our quote of the week will touch on this a bit more briefly, but for now, we still have to go over these weekly stats. We'll do those quickly. So in the end, I ended up going 22.2 miles this week with an average pace of around 9.5 minutes per mile. And then total time spent outside, 3 hours, 27 minutes, and 28 seconds. A very, very solid week. Broken up a little bit by rain. Attempted breaking up a bit by my own mental state. But at the end of the day, a very successful week. The mileages are still piling on. The pace is getting faster. The total time actually is kind of staying the same or going down, because as my pace increases, the less time I'm spent out, and that's kind of balancing itself out naturally. So I think this was a very, very solid week. And before we jump over to looking ahead, as we often do, we will jump over to our quote of the week quickly before quickly looking ahead. I know I kind of got a little rambly here as we looked back, so we'll quickly cover our week ahead, and then we'll wrap this thing up. But for now, enjoy our quote of the week. I'll see you back here in a minute. So what happened to me on my Sunday run, I think, was very important to recognize and to keep in mind going forward, either for myself or for someone else who might find some help in this as well. And what happened was that, well, let's do this. I'll read the quote first, and then we'll talk about it. So this quote is from Henry Ford, and it reads, "Obstacles are those frightful things you see when you take your eyes off your goals." And this could be applied to almost anything, but for me, I'm choosing it to apply to that Sunday run, that 10K in less than 55 minutes. I talked about in our Looking Back segment that I think I became so focused on what would happen if I didn't do it that I wasn't focusing on doing it at all. And so, those obstacles that, I was dealing with were both my mental state and my, wavering belief that I could actually do it. That my goal almost became, how do I accept that I won't do it instead of continuing to focus on doing it, instead of succeeding, instead of, overcoming these obstacles and moving and pushing through and overcoming them. That it almost became a self-fulfilling prophecy of, going from feeling good to worrying if I'm even going to do it to almost becoming so focused on what would happen if I didn't do it that that itself kept me from doing it. And so it was very important that I shifted my mindset back towards completing the workout to the best of my ability rather than focusing on failure. And thankfully I was able to move through and actually complete it. But this is something that happens a lot, where if you can get in your own head and these obstacles can kind of become your end point rather than continuing to focus on your ultimate goal. And I suggest to everyone, and I think I'm suggesting it also to myself, is that when you run into these obstacles, you hit these mental walls. And especially in running, when you hit the wall, it's important not to focus on the now, but more to focus on your goal as a large and to figure out ways of overcoming the goals instead of being bogged down by them. So this was a very fun quote, and I think it really is very helpful both for myself and hopefully for someone else. But for now, I think we need to go back to the calendar to take a brief look at our week ahead and see what kind of fun we get ourselves into next week. I hope you enjoyed this quote of the week. Let's send you back to the calendar. Welcome back to the calendar. I promise this will be brief because I think I got a little rambly there towards the end of our looking back portion of this video. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to slam into this. Week 5. Can't believe it's already week 5 of this next training plan. Week 5 when we got a fun one. We start out rest day on Monday, badly needed, very okay with that. And then we have about a 5-mile run-ish of a 1-mile jog warm-up, and then 30 minutes of 3 minutes fast, 2 minutes slow. So a very different take on intervals and a very, I kind of touched on it when talking about intervals in the last one, but these kind of intervals are always very interesting workouts. And the fact that this one is a time interval and not a distance intervals, both in these segments as well as the overall interval time. So instead of doing where normally, I think last week we'll use it as a quick example of, it was 4 segments of half a mile fast, quarter mile recovery, that you can work that out to a set distance. This is just 30 minutes. So the pace is kind of going to be up to me to see how far we can get in 30 minutes of doing these 3 minutes fast, 2 minutes slow. So I think this is going to turn out very interestingly. And I'm very curious to see the results of this after it's over. So keep an eye on this one. I think this one's going to be an interesting one this week. Moving forward, we'll just go ahead and cover the next 2 days, kind of the same time. Wednesday, 5 miles in 55 minutes or less. I think that's pretty standard at this point. Knock out 5 miles the day after doing a pretty rather intense interval workout at a pretty steady pace. Very okay with that. And then 4 miles. It says marathon pace, so I can't remember if I did the math on that or if it listed that, but it says at marathon pace, which is, I think worked out to about 10 minutes or so a mile. I'll probably run it pretty steadily. Don't know necessarily if I'll run it at 10 minutes or faster. We'll cross that bridge when we get there. A couple of rest days will be very welcomed. And then this is what I've been waiting for, and I think I've been talking about it for the last few weeks. We finally get to go back into the double-digit mileage runs, and I get to run 10 miles on Sunday, and I am very excited because this is going to be the first test in a long while of actually being able to force myself to run a pace that I can maintain for 10 miles, not necessarily trying to push myself like I had been the last handful of weeks leading up to this training plan. I had covered those a lot in our previous episodes. Go back and watch those if you find that interesting. But 10 miles in about 105 minutes. So it's looking at about 10 minutes per mile. I think that's going to be my goal. I think my goal is going to be a 10-minute pace, at least in the beginning, and maybe at a point where I know that I can hit that average of 10 minutes a pace. And if I want to go faster, I can. But that is my goal, to run at about 10-minute pace and just complete the 10 miles and feel good about it and not feel like I want to die or not feel like I am breaking physically. So that is going to be very exciting. So that Tuesday workout and that Sunday long run are definitely the highlights of this week. And I'm very, very, very excited to get those under my belts and on the books and to see the results of it. I have really high hopes for that 10 miles. And if it doesn't go well, it'll really crush me. But, we take defeat just as well as we do success, but I am very excited if you can't tell. But that was a very quick look ahead. We'll send it back to the desk now. We'll wrap this thing up, and we'll send you guys out on your way for this week. Well, you guys, that is actually going to wrap up episode 17 of my Marathon Training 2 series. I hope you had a very good time watching it. I had a very interesting week this week, and that Sunday run definitely was a very interesting thought experiment, as well as just workout in general, both mentally and physically. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. It really helps me out. If you enjoy this content, consider subscribing. I think I am 2 subscribers away from 20, and it's been my goal kind of working towards that for as long as I have been the last few weeks. So if you're not subscribed, please subscribe. I'm trying to build a community here, and I'm trying to, reach out to as many people as possible who may be looking to start their journey or are working on their own. And, making those connections, because I really, really want to build a community and really want to, outreach as many people as possible. If you have any thoughts on this week or how your own training is going, leave a comment down in the section below. Let's get some fun talk going. I know I try to respond to any comment that does come in. I'm trying to make people feel welcome. So I would love to see more comments down below as well. But for now, that's going to wrap it up for me this week. I hope you all have a great week going forward, and keep an eye out this week, because for the first time, I think in a long time, I actually have another video coming out this week. I won't tell you when, I won't tell you what it is, but I had a lot of fun, and it's something a little different than this normal content that we've had for the last couple of months, but I had a lot of fun making it, and I have a lot of fun ideas about continuing it going forward, and I hope you guys embrace it and enjoy it. So I think, well, who am I kidding? Let's say it's coming out tomorrow, so Tuesday morning I think is kind of my is when it's scheduled to go up. So we'll see how that goes. We may space it out a bit from this video going forward in the next couple of weeks. But I finally found some content that I enjoyed making, and I can add it to this channel, and I can finally stop mentioning in every video that I'm trying to, find more stuff to make for this channel instead of just this running log, I guess. So I hope you keep an eye out for that. Give it a watch, give it a listen. I hope you enjoy it. I hope you enjoyed this. I hope all of you go out and have a great week. And as for me here in this series, see you guys next week.